Welcome to this Easy 11 Plus short lesson on the order of operations, which you might know as BIDMAS or BODMAS. In other words, the order in which you do things like adding, multiplying, dividing, and so on. If you find this video useful, remember to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check all the useful resources in the video description. And don't forget that my live lessons are every Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock in this channel. Let's get going. So remember that BIDMAS means that you deal with brackets, then indices like 3 squared, then division and multiplication in the order that they appear, and then addition and subtraction in the order that they appear. And we'll come to the ways that people find this confusing as they turn up. Let's start from the top. So some people who don't know about BIDMAS would start this by doing 1 plus 2 is 3, times 3 is 9, and 9 minus 6 equals 3. But of course you know that that's wrong. We have to think about our BIDMAS. There are no brackets here, there are no indices, there's no division, but there is a multiplication. So that's the first thing that we have to do. So 2 times 3 is 6. And now we've got 1 plus 6 minus 6. So 1 plus 6 is 7, minus 6 is 1. So the answer is simply 1. Here we've also got a multiplication, but we also have brackets. And in our mnemonic, BIDMAS, the very first thing that we have to deal with is any brackets. So we start off with 3 minus 6. 3 minus 6, of course, is minus 3. Minus 3 takes us to 0, and minus another 3 takes us to minus 3. Then we have to deal with the multiplication. So 2 times minus 3 is minus 6. 2 times 3 is 6, and we minus it. And now we have to do 1 plus minus 6. Now if you've got something plus a minus number, it's just minus. You can think of it clearly if you say the symbols as words. So if you say 1 and take away 6, then it's clear that we need to do 1 minus 6. I often find that when you're dealing with negative numbers, it's really helpful to think of a number line. So imagine a number line a little bit like this. So we've got to take 6 away from 1. So to get from 1 to 0, we obviously take away 1. So if we're taking 6 away, we have to take away another 5. And so 1 minus 6 is minus 5. The other way to think about it is to do 6 minus 1, which is 5, and then put a minus sign in front of it. That also works fine. Here we have a really simple one, but it's the kind of question that a lot of people who know a bit about BIDMAS but don't really understand it tend to get wrong. Because they go through and say, brackets, indices, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. I need to do the addition first. So they do this. They say 5 plus 4 is 9. And then they say, and 30 minus 9 is 21. But that isn't correct, because that isn't what BIDMAS means. As I said earlier, BIDMAS means that you need to deal with brackets, then indices, then division and multiplication in the order that they appear, and then addition and subtraction in the order that they appear. It doesn't make sense to do addition before subtraction, because addition and subtraction are just versions of the same thing. As we just saw, if you add minus something, you're just minusing it. Addition and subtraction are just moving numbers left and right along that number line. So it doesn't make sense to prioritize one over the other. We just have to work from left to right. 30 minus 5 is 25. And 25 plus 4 is 29. For short problems like this, the way that I'm bracketing them off to do a bit at a time can work quite well. Here we appear to have the same question, but there are some brackets. And the brackets override everything. They tell us what to do first. So here we are being told to do 5 plus 4 at the start. And then we can see that 30 minus 9 does of course give us 21. Looking at this one, we can see that there's a division and multiplication part, which is over here, and there's a subtraction and addition part, which is over here. And we know that we need to do division and multiplication first, and addition and subtraction later. So let's start in the correct place. Remember, you do division and multiplication in the order that they appear. So we're going to start off by doing 4 divided by 2, which of course gives us 2. And 2 times 6 is 12. Now we've dealt with all the division and multiplication, so now we move along. 12 minus 3, and 9 plus 7 is 16. Here we've got the same numbers, but again the brackets are interfering, telling us what to do first. So we need to start off by doing 7 plus 3, which of course is 10. We know that 4 divided by 2 times 6 is 12, because we worked that out for the previous one. So we simply have to do 12 minus 10. Now this one looks really complicated, but again we're just going to work a step at a time. So brackets, there are no brackets. Indices, here we have one. So we got 5 squared. This means that first of all, we need to translate 5 squared into 25, because 5 times 5 is 25. Now we need to do any multiplying and dividing in the order that these things appear. So 25 times 2 is 50. 50 divided by 5 is 10. And 10 times 2 is 20. And now we simply have to add 5 to that, which gives us 25. This way of putting brackets underneath them to work through the stages is just my own method, but I think it makes it really clear. Here once again we got a question using the same set of numbers, but with some brackets to mess things up for us. So first of all we have to work out 5 plus 5 squared, but in fact before that we need to know what 5 squared is. So that first bracket is worth 30. Let's look at the other bracket. So now we've got 30 times 2 divided by 10. And of course we just do these things in the order that they appear. 30 times 2 is 60. And 60 divided by 10 is 6, because we just take off the 0. And that's our answer. So see how just putting some brackets can change an answer from 25 to 6. Now we're moving on to some slightly weirder ones that probably won't turn up at 11 plus, but it's worth knowing these things. It's really important fundamental maths. So here you've got an example of indices, 2 to the power of something, but we've also got brackets, and in BIDMAS or BODMAS, brackets come first. So the first thing we need to solve is 2 times 3. So 2 to the 2 times 3 is 2 to the 6. What does 2 to the 6 mean? Well, 2 squared would mean 2 times 2. So 2 to the 6 equals 2 times 2 times 2, that's 2 to the 3, times 2 times 2 times 2. And that's 2 to the 6. So let's do this in bits. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32, times 2 is 64. I didn't really do that in bits, did I? I just went through from beginning to end. But anyway, don't accuse me of being consistent. Now with this one, we're actually a fair bit beyond 11 plus. But what I'm going to show you here is pretty simple, and it's just really worth knowing. So if you've got a square root like this, you need to find the square root of 36. It's important to know that the square root of 36 can also be written as 36 to the power of a half. So a square root actually belongs to the I for indices in our BIDMAS. So we've got 2 examples of indices here. We've got the square root of 36 and 3 squared. So we need to do these 2 things first before we multiply them together. The square root of 36 is 6. You work that out by thinking, what do I times by itself to get 36? 6 times 6 is 36. What's 3 squared? Of course it's 9. 3 times 3 is 9. And 6 times 9, as of course you know, is 54. Now this one's really mean. I don't think you'll see this in an 11 plus exam, but if you can get this right, it shows that you've really understood all the things that we've covered in this session. So we haven't got any brackets. Let's get started with the indices. 7 squared is 49. 7 times 7 is 49. To find the square root of 9, what times this by itself to give 9? And of course you know that 3 times 3, or 3 squared, is 9. So the square root of 9 is 3. We've dealt with the indices. We do have one really big example to deal with, which is here. But that applies to everything. So we need to find the answer to the rest and then find the square root of all of it. So when we talk about BIDMAS telling us the order in which to do things, here we aren't exactly saying that we need to find the square root first, because we don't actually know what we're finding the square root of. We have to know that before we can do this. So to be slightly more accurate than I've been so far, BIDMAS is an order of priorities. So the I part of BIDMAS has a very high priority, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we can always do it first, because sometimes we have to find out other things. In this case, we have to know what we are going to square root. So the next thing we can do is the multiplication. And now we've got 49 plus 12 plus 3. And that gives us 64. So at this stage, all we need to do is find the square root of 64. So we can work through our squared table, as it were. So 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36, 7 squared is 49, and 8 squared is 64. So 8 times 8 is 64. That means that the square root of 64 is 8. And that's it. So it comes out quite simply in the end. It may seem like quite a simple topic, but as you'll have seen in the session, there's actually quite a lot to it, and there's plenty more that I could have covered. I hope it's been useful. That should give you pretty much everything that you need for BIDMAS or BODMAS at the 11+. If you did find it useful, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to come back for my next live lesson next Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock. In the meantime, why not take a few moments to explore the links in the video description, which include some free things for you to download. Bye-bye.